If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then this, the UK Property Market Stats Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I'm joined by a special guest. This week it's Rob Smith. We'll come to Rob in a second. The purpose of this show is to talk about what's happening in the property market. Now, there's an awful lot of indices out there. The Land Registry looks at data from sales that took place 6, 7, 8 months ago. The Nationwide and Halifax are looking at sales that took place 2, 3 months ago. We're looking at house prices and everything else like that from last week. So we know exactly what's happening in the property market. Today, I'm joined by Rob Smith, who is big in the game in the property franchise group. He's responsible for the Hunters brand and Whitegates as well, isn't it, Rob?
That's right. Yep.
Good stuff. So I think at least 300 offices under your wing, if not more, be around that.
It is now. Now I'm working alongside and pleased to work alongside Phil G at Northwood as well. So yeah,
exceptional. So Rob's got his finger on the pulse. He's exceptional operator. This, I think, is your third time back, mate.
It is number 3. Thank you.
Well, you only get invited back if you're good enough, and the exceptional work what you do. So thank you very much for joining us today. So for the purposes of everyone, we're looking at week 34 of 2024, which is Monday the 19th of August, all the way through and including Sunday the 25th of August. The show itself is roughly split up into 2. The first half looks at the UK property market, and then the second half looks at a town or a city where we really deep dive and really get deep and dirty with regard to what's happening in that particular property market. This week, we are going to the beautiful town of Thetford on the Norfolk-Suffolk border. Now, if you don't come from Thetford, you might find that pretty boring. But actually, if you're an estate agent who's suffering from not being called out to enough valuations, or when you do go out to the valuations, you're losing them on cheap fees or overvaluing, then do watch the show, because we're going to be using a bit of kit, which I know this phrase is used with abandon, game changer, but the bit of kit we're going to be using independently proves whether you're a good estate agent or not, and whether the agents who are overvaluing or doing other nasty things are actually any good themselves. So if you are a good agent and you're finding it really hard, then maybe watch the show and look at the bit of kit that we use, because if you're as good as you think you are, you could be using the same information in your town to beat overvaluing and to beat cheap fees, and more importantly, get called out to even more valuations as well. Okay, Rob, shall we kick off and go and have a look at those stats there, mate? As always, here we go. So, as always, we start off with listings. And what I do is I just spend 30 seconds going through the stats, and then Rob then shares his wisdom. This week, we listed as a country 34,766 properties. Just to give you an idea, last week it was 34, last week it was 34, last week it was 35. We'll just, hold on, we'll just pull that back again. There we go. The average price of a property coming on the market is 407,000. Year to date, we have listed 1.164 million properties, which compared to 2023 year to date is 7.5% higher. We are 7.2% higher than the averages of 17, 18 and 19, which is more average years. Rob, what's your thoughts on listings, mate?
Slightly surprised in terms of August performance, because August is normally pretty quiet on the listing front historically, other than the bank holiday bit of a blip that you come in at the end and people getting ready for September. So yeah, some big numbers, big jump year on year, quite a significant increase year on year on instructions, I think that was. But what it definitely shows is there's a big appetite for people to be putting the house on the market and getting moved. Certainly getting on the market before the end of this year. As you know and I know, they're not going to be selling and moving by Christmas like you used to do back in the day. But yeah, great to see a big appetite for people wanting to sell and move, hopefully buy again, which I think is a great indicator for Q4 and September.
Bang on. I mean, for those of you who are watching this, I know some people are listening to this on podcast, but you do have the facility to download the graphs. In fact, anyone has the facility to download the graphs on YouTube. There's a little link at the bottom in the description, write up, and also on those that are listening on podcast in the write up, there's a little link at the bottom. And all these graphs are available for you to download. I'm more than happy for you to use them internally, and I'm more than happy for you to use them at valuations. All I do ask is that you don't use them in social media. The reason being is that my daytime job, ladies and gentlemen, is I ghostwrite articles on local property markets. And as a bonus, I give these to my local clients as a bonus that they can publish under their own name, the more national stuff. So it just wouldn't be fair otherwise. But I'm more than happy for you to use them, as I said, at valuations to prove you know what you're talking about. Just so you're aware, the white line on this graph is 2024. And as we said, there's a 7% greater lift compared to the pink line, which is 2023. Interestingly, though, notice, Rob, that, and we said this last time, is that the patterns are very similar. You have a takeoff in January, a quite easygoing Feb and March. We have the Easter dips. We have the 2 bank holiday dips in May. She drifts off during the summer, although we've had a slight uptick since Keir Starmer came in. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have a dip down on bank holiday because this week is bank holiday. You'll be listening to this on Friday, so you'll be hearing that. And then she'll bounce back up like she always does, and off she goes. Anything else on here that before we move on to price reductions, mate?
No, pretty consistent and stable market on prices.
It's just nicely boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. So number of price reductions this week is 20,540, which means that the number of properties that we are reducing is approximately 1 in 8.2 per month. Okay, which to me doesn't sound a huge amount. Yeah, it doesn't sound a lot, does it? I think we need to be working, especially when you consider, and remember, ladies and gentlemen, that again, this stat has remained pretty consistent in the last 18 months. For every 100 houses that we are putting onto the market in the UK, you are only exchanging, and therefore you're only being paid on 52.3% of them, which means the other 47.7, you're putting them on the market and you're not shifting them, and you're not being paid, and you're wasting your time, and you're wasting vendors' time, and you're wasting everyone's time. What do you think 1 in 8 is enough in this market?
No, I don't. I think one of the problems we have is there's viewing activity in the market. So there are quite a lot of people out and about interested in buying. So buyer activity is still pretty strong, we're finding, and therefore if the vendor's getting viewings, there's a bit of a reluctance to reduce, which we've been here before. We know what we then have to say to the vendor, but it is a different story from people when they get low offers or people don't get activity. So maybe there's a bit of a vendor desire to hold fire and not reduce for another month or so and sort of hanging by the skin of the teeth, when actually a good solid conversation on the sofa explaining to them that actually get your price right for September and you'll probably beat everybody else and sell it. So let's look at it now, because it's not about just viewing activity. You got to get offers that are right, haven't you? So maybe that is the sort of the golden nugget to crack our vendors.
Certainly. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we announced this a few weeks ago, but if a property sells within 25 days, the chances of it actually going through to completion are 94%. A property sells within 25 days, its chances of it then actually exchanging and completing, i.e. you selling, are 94%. If a property takes more than 100 days to achieve a sale, its chances of actually going through to exchange and completion reduce to 56%. And there are steps in between, but fundamentally the bottom line is the longer a property takes to sell, the less chance if it does sell subject to contract will it actually exchange and complete, which is a mind-blowing number, isn't it?
That's frightening. I've not really seen those sorts of numbers before, but it absolutely says to everybody, get the price right from the off.
And again, I know we talk about overvaluing an awful lot in this show, ladies and gentlemen, but appreciate you do have to slightly over egg the pudding slightly to get the property onto the market sometimes. And I think there is such a thing as ethical overvaluing and unethical overvaluing. I think, unethical is where you blatantly you tell a bullshit figure to get the property on the market, and then as the valuer and lister, you leave it to the next to try and get the price down. Hey, if you're man enough or woman enough to put the house on the market, given that figure, you're the one responsible. We said last week with Ian White when he was here is that Romans insisted that you on the time of listing, you booked in a vendor meeting face to face 4 weeks later, which I think was such a simple idea but a great idea, and the valuer had to do it. And interestingly, I was talking to your colleague Toby Phillips, and he suggested that you actually have what's called a partnership agreement, which it can only be a couple of lines. It's saying I believe the house is worth 275, but we're going to try it at 300. But in 4 weeks' time, we will have a meeting, and if it hasn't sold, we will reduce the price to X.
Yeah, it's all about setting the vendor expectations. I don't have any issues really with people who put the property on the market at slightly more than they honestly think it's worth, but you've got to set the vendor's expectations that you're probably not going to get it, but you'll do your best. But if we haven't, let's get it sold at the right price.
Absolutely fascinating. If you want to think how people, there's a Facebook group called Property Advice UK or something like that, and the number of people that have said, I put my house on the market at X and it's been on the market 4 weeks and it hasn't sold, and I thought the property was worth Y, and now my agent is telling me that. It's funny, the agent said X, they thought Y, now the agent is said, who'd never said in the first place, bring it down to Y. Now they won't, even though that's what they thought it was worth.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
They are vendors are queer folk once they've got their house on the market, because they live in the best house on the street.
Oh, don't even, yeah. That's nearly as bad as a estate agent saying that wouldn't work in our town. Oh,
exactly.
If we had £1 every time someone said that, mate, we could go.
I wouldn't be on this show, I can tell you that for sure if I had that.
Anyway, it's moving on. Right, okay. Good news on gross sales. White line is gross sales. This week it is 25,531. Just to give you an idea, last week it was 24.8, week before 24.8, week before 25.7, week before 25.8. So what is absolutely massive is look at the difference. Look at the difference. The pink line is last year, where we were hovering around 21, and this week we're at 20. Last week, sorry, start again. Week 34 in 2023, 20,304, and this week 25,351. That is a growth of around 25% more gross sales this week compared to the same week as last week. We had the same number of gross sales as 2022. Remember the trust budget hadn't kicked in yet, so everything was hunky-dory at that time. And even this is the scary thing, is this, and I know it's not on this graph, but we are literally 4% below gross sales than we saw in 2021 in this week. Now, it's not on this graph here. It is on net sales, but on gross, so it's good, but tempered with the fact is that there's a lot more stock on the market at the moment. And I've got a new graph, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard it here first. A brand new graph which compares sales versus properties for sale, and it's called the sell-through rate. I just want to thank David Newens for that phrase, because he's a big fan of the show. And I showed him the graph. I said, what do I call this? He says, Christopher, we call that the sell-through rate. And again, I doff my cap to that man. It's a fantastic bloke. Anyway, he owns quite a lot of Your Move franchises. Right, let's move on. So that's not bad at all, mate, is it? Let's just have a quick look at the others. Gross sales year to date is 816,382, which is 11.9% further on than this is year to date, remember, than 2023. Where it was 729,800, and it is 6.8% further on than years 17, 18, and 19. The average asking price of a property sold subject to contract is 354. We'll come to that in a second, a bit more on that one. and the number of properties sold subject to contract, as I said, 25,000. We'll look at the prices in a second, but let's just have a quick look. This is your new graph. Look at this. Oh, this is your sell-through rate. So basically, each month, this will change every month. We take the number of sale agreeds in that month and compare it as the total number of properties sold. Start again, Watkin. Number of properties subject to contract that month versus the number of properties for sale. That's the new graph, the Resi sell-through rate. A lot of people were saying they were quite surprised in 21 where the numbers weren't as high as 30 because almost everything was coming on the market. But quite clearly, not everything was selling. I think we were just in Happy Valley there, weren't we, a bit?
Yeah, I think what's interesting, you got to find the only thing is you have to find the balance between having enough houses on the market yourself and the percentage that you sell. So if I've only got 30 houses on the market and I've got to sell 15 a month to make myself any money or to turn over what I need to turn over, I've got to have a better sell-through rate. So we have to balance individual agents on what stock they've got and therefore what percentage they should be selling. But I think this is a great indicator that if you're not selling 15% of your stock, you're not necessarily doing a fantastic job for yourself or for your vendor.
And see, again, I just love the seasonality. You know, it's almost like an oscilloscope. Like, you know, that it hardly ever changes. Obviously, we had the COVID years, but bang, up and down a bit, drift off, down. Same here. Fantastic. Just again, a new graph, ladies and gentlemen. Just get a flavour. Now, let's move on. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is an important graph. This is comparing the average asking price of the listings versus the average price of the properties that go to sale agreed. That's not to say that every house that comes on the market at this price sells for that. What we have to remember, and we say this many times, that lower price properties have a higher propensity or higher chance to selling. Therefore, that will drag the average down. The important part is the gap between the two. Last year, we had, so what was happening is that this year has almost followed identically to what's happened last year, is that, you know, hold on, there we go. She goes up. So this is Feb, March, April, May, June, and then June, July. So notice here that the more, this is interesting, the more expensive properties sell in the middle years. I've just that's the light bulb moment. You see that? There, look. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, and then start tailing off afterwards.
So the cheaper properties sell in the winter, and the more expensive properties sell in the summer. There you go. Look at
They look so pretty and amazing with their huge gardens and they look stunning.
Indeed. So that's the effect of seasonality. So when you see seasonally adjusted, ladies and gentlemen, that's why they're seasonally adjusted. Right. Okay. This it keeps moving about. This lump here, this lump here was everyone coming back and putting their posh houses on the market in London. Okay. So let us see in the next 2 weeks if we get that. But as I said, I've interrogated the numbers, and that was all down to central London. And that's the effect that central London has on the property market.
Well, if you look at the 2 months before that, and you look at what we've done for the last 2 months, it's virtually the mirror image, isn't it? So we're just on the cusp of moving upwards. Like you said, it'd be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks in terms of.
So therefore, if you're in London, ladies and gentlemen, in London, which is WN ESW SE and all the other wonderful things, NNW, sorry, yeah. Then make hay while the sun shines. But remember, this is interesting. Only 1 in 3 homes in London actually sell and exchange and complete. Which is scary as hell. That scares me.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's just it. That's the same graph week standalone for week 34. And as I said, the difference is 15%. The long-term average is 16 to 17. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, long-term. Okay, let's move on. This is a brand new graph. Last week, this changes every month. We'll show it every week, but it changes every month. And this is the percentage of sales pipeline that fell through that month. So we're now moving on to fall throughs. We'll just come back to that in a second. Let's just look at the raw numbers. This week, the number of sale fall throughs is 6,363, which again, when you consider that last week it was 6.3, before 6.6, the week before 6.4, week before 6.8, week before 6, week before 6.4, that trend is going upwards. But again, it was going upwards in August, from spring through to the summer. Ignore the drips down. These are the Christmas breaks. So whether they stop drifting off, I don't know. But this was concerning me. And again, this is an old graph. This is the standalone fall through rate, which is the number of fall throughs this week expressed as a percentage of the number of gross sales this week. So very standalone, very, very, just looking at the week, very blinkered. And again, it's a good graph, but again, just to remind people that have not watched the show, that's the quasi-quartile budget. That's Christmas, so you have to ignore that. So $2 down to 20. This is the interest rates rising in the summer of 23, drifting down, Christmas blip, and then slowly rising up. But again, we're up to 25%. So this is why we did this new graph, ladies and gentlemen. And this is, we looked at the number of properties in the estate agent sales pipelines as units, and then we looked at the number of fall throughs that took place, and then did a percentage. So therefore, on average, 6% of your sales pipeline is falling through a month. Considering that that's between 17, that's pretty stable, isn't it? In the last month, we have 25,700. We haven't done the August figures yet, but 25,700 properties have fallen through. And then if we pull up this graph here, we've got the sales pipeline. So this is the sales pipeline in unit numbers.
Okay.
So when I get the stats through for August, that 502 will change because obviously it'll be a new pipeline. And then I will just apply the number of fall throughs in that month and express it as a percentage. Okay. Any questions?
No, if you say that's what it is, then
that is what it is. That is what it is. Okay. It's a new graph, but it's just another way of looking at, because again, you just think to yourself, and again, different people have different ways of looking at numbers. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got a graph that you love to bits and you think you can't live without it, then please do send me a DM and see if I've got the stats, because we might be able to very easily come up with something. But this just shows you the percentage of your sales pipeline that fell through. So total pipeline, you got 100 properties. If 6 fell through that month, 6 as a percentage of 100 is 6%. And as I said, that is pretty average in that trend line. Right, let's move on and let's look at net sales. So net sales is gross sales, less fall throughs. And this week we have sold net sales. Let's just pull up the numbers. Hold on. There we go. 18,988, which again, compared to 2023, that was 14,159. So that's a massive lift from there. So, and again, we are ahead in terms of net sales compared to the orange line, which is 17 to 19, when it was 70, around that 18 mark. So again, it's not bad. I mean, again, to actually almost be hitting the same numbers as 2021 for net sales, just have a quick look at those. Yeah, I mean, we're only 1,000 adrift. That's not bad.
No, it's good. It's good. And what I don't want to speak too soon, but you can see there is a total trend from now till the rest of the year. And there's no reason why that gap shouldn't remain the same in comparison to your 2023 numbers for the next 3 months. So if we've got that belief that the marketplace is going to be very similar, then you need to be making sure you're taking your unfair share of the market, because it's out there.
Indeed. So again, let's just remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, here that's the Easter. Do you always mix up bank holidays? That's your August bank holiday dip. And again, as I said, let's just see how. But I mean, look at that blue line, which is the 22 line with the quasi-quartile. We are heads and shoulders. Look at this. We were in October, net sales around 12,000. We need to. I reckon we'll probably be hitting we're around the orange line, which is somewhere in the order of about 17 or 18,000. So again, she's going to be drifting off, ladies and gentlemen. So make hay while the sun shines. Net sales year to date are sitting on 630,400, which is 14.2% higher than the 23 figure, and pardon me, 4.6% higher than the 17-18 average. Net sales, as I said, we just said it just under 19,000. Anything on net sales before we move on?
No, I think no, it's same trend.
Okay.
Good. It's there.
Right. Price changes as a percentage of listings. I'm coming up with some new graphs, which I'm going to be sharing with you all in the next week or so, which talks about some of the. I'm bringing in new graphs just to spice it up a bit, give a bit of a chili kick. And as I said, gross sales as a percentage of listings. We're looking at turning these into more, not standalone weeks, but more of a trend stuff. Just so you're aware, the number of properties that are for sale in the UK, the yellow lines are all the yellows are end of July. So we always close the book at the end of the month and see how many properties are for sale. So again, I suspect if you look at everything else, the number of properties for sale in August will be slightly lower. However, the listings have been quite high, so the net figure, it depends what the withdrawal rates are. And again, withdrawal rates are quite high at the moment, so we need to keep an eye on that one. We've already shown this graph already, but this is the number of properties that are sold subject to contract, unit numbers in pipelines at the end of every month. The white lines are the end of July. So again, to have pipelines that are substantially higher than 17, 18 and 19. And again, some people are going to say, Rob, well, is this to do with the fact that sales are taking longer? I can remember looking at sales were taking 17, 18, 19 weeks in the late teens, weren't they?
Yeah, I just think it's where we are. We're selling more. Our net sales are up, the availability's up, the stock's up, the pipeline's going to be up. It's natural if you're doing the job properly as an estate agent that you're listing more, your stock's more, you should be selling more, your pipeline should be more.
Absolutely.
But it does say that it could be under threat a bit in the next 4 months because it is so big.
It could be, and again, most agents are probably getting around 20%, late teens to 20. Anything over 20 is quite good at the moment. But I talk to a lot of agents. There's some as low as 15 at the moment, getting their pipeline through a month. Which, you know, in the good old days when we had dark hair and hair, you know, a long exchange was 8 weeks, and now, as I said, it's an average of 19. And again, the bit that scares me is if its average is 19, over half of them are over 19 weeks. What I would say, ladies and gentlemen, is this, and I do mention this an awful lot. I don't know what your opinion is, Rob, is this, but I am a massive fan of, number one, instructing the solicitor before when your property comes on the market.
Yeah.
So you can get the pack ready. And listeners, if you're not doing that, you are setting yourself up for, you know, I find a lot of valuers, they get their kicks from putting the house on the market and not from actually getting the job done and selling. And I'm making a sweeping statement there for the industry, but especially those who are employed in the industry. Again, it's different if you're your own business. Another one which I'm a massive fan of is reservation agreements. And again, please, there's a number of providers that do that, but your fall through rates are in single digits, ladies and gentlemen. You know, please, just if there's one thing you're going to do from today's show, please type into Google reservation agreements. There are a number of firms that are out there, some that are better than others, but they'll give you your value. You can actually use it as an advantage to get the house on the market. Yeah, mind blowing. Okay. And the last thing, and again, Rob, just come on and talk about these three things before we go to Thetford, is dedicated sales progression. And that's either ruling the time out, it just next leave it to the end. They just everything's a day here, a day here, and it all adds up. And I'm a big fan of dedicated sales progression. That's either allotted time and you can't do anything, or outsourcing it. I'm a big fan of complete ASAP. Others are available. And they're getting sales through in around 12 weeks. But anyway, what's your thoughts on instructing solicitors before when the property comes on the market? Secondly, reservation agreements, and thirdly, sales progression. What's your thoughts on those, Rob?
So number one is essential, because especially now with the more the material information, etc., where you need far more information to put the house on the market, you have to do a really thorough job to put the property on the market, A, to be compliant, but also B, it does speed it up because there's less to do when the property actually gets sold subject to contract. So without a doubt, we should be making sure wherever possible new instructions that hit the market are sale ready, as I think a lot of people call it. And in terms of, what was your second one? In terms of
Reservation agreements.
Agreements. Well, anything that gives you a better chance of exchanging contracts, be it reservation or be it auction, whatever facility there are for different types of online auctions, etc. I think it's a club that you've got to have in your bag because somebody in the high street will use it. So don't. My experience with those products is where estate agents say it doesn't work around here, as we've already talked about, and oh yeah, they used to do that ages ago, but it's got a bad reputation. I can assure you, there's somebody on your high street that's using it, and if you're not using it, and they describe it properly to the vendor, you're probably going to lose the instruction. So why would you willingly lose the instruction when you could have that club in the bag? But you got to go find it. You got to talk to people, and you got to familiarize yourself with it. And the biggest thing, I suppose, Chris, is what we found is when you've got the tool, you've got to be able to use it. So we used to say to our values, there's no point in giving you Tiger Woods clubs if you can't hit the golf ball. So you can have the club in your bag, but you've got to be proficient on the sofa. And if you're not, the vendor will see through you, and they won't. You won't win the instruction.
Right. You are so right. You can see, ladies and gentlemen, why we invite Rob on here. He knows his onions. He is the onion meister. And sales progression.
So
why sales progression.
You're sorry?
Why, as an industry, are we? It almost, if you talk to solicitors, they always feel. All I feel like I'm being chased of when they want to know when they're going to get paid.
So to be fair, Chris, there's a difference between sales progression and what a lot of estate agents do, because a lot of estate agents sales check. So instead of ringing up and asking where we are and what do we need to do next and when are you going to do that and when shall I call you because you've done that, instead of actually progressing it, i.e. looking at what the client, solicitor, vendor, purchaser should be doing this week to move it along, too many agents just ring for an update, which must really annoy conveyancers, because an update's a waste of time, because all you're doing is passing information that most people already know over to your customer to make your customer feel happy, when actually there's no relevance. There's nothing proactive with sales checking, and too many people sit on the phone chasing solicitors with no proactive intent.
Do you think the average neg on the high street working for, say, one of the corporate chains, and probably also independents, could actually describe the sales progress and who does what and actually understand the process?
No, probably not. I think it's more of a, can you ring those files and find out where we are with them, and then ring the vendor and ring the purchaser?
Yeah.
Which is checking. That's sales checking. So what I'm an advocate for is challenging everybody to what's happening next. So if you know what should happen next, a good friend of mine's got a process within his office where they break the sales progression down into unit moves. So if there's 13 moves that have to happen before exchange and completion, every time we make a phone call, we want another one of those units moved along, so it's ticked off properly, like a checklist, and therefore every phone call is productive because I want to make sure the next move's made. Instead, lots of people want to keep busy by ringing solicitors and talking to vendors and purchasers, when actually my personal viewpoint is I'd probably do what you've talked about. I wouldn't probably have centralized progression, but you'd have a time and a place to do it. If you do it with a similar amount of people every week, so if you have some preferred solicitors you use who can give you one phone call with 7 updates, you're not ringing 7 different people. If I do that all at a certain time of the week, that's done. As long as my vendors and purchasers know that when our sales progress, you're going to get an update on a Tuesday afternoon, if it's a Tuesday. Your vendor and purchaser aren't going to ring you on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. because you've already told them, no, doing it on a Tuesday. Yeah. And therefore, how much time in your diary do you free up to go and win some more instructions?
Mm.
That
Yep.
is a sensible estate agent. Go out
How
and
many
win your business.
and how many sales fall through at week 17, 8, and whatever? Because basically there's no communication and people throw the rattle out the prams, rightly so, because there's been no communication. And I think, we can blame solicitors till the cows come home. We can the fact that they're factory conveyances, but the fundamental thing is that we are at the center hub of everything, and and everything is our fault, isn't it? I'm a big believer in that. Everything is our fault. If the sales aren't coming through, it's our fault. We should be instructing the solicitors. We should be using stuff like reservations agreements, and we should be dedicating for sales progression. Anyway, let's get back, because this is not we're on soapbox duty. Finally, this hasn't changed because we only change this once a month. This shows the pound per square foot on residential sales. The orange is source of the contract. The green is exchanged. We'll update that in next month. The orange line is the line you watch. That basically foretells what will happen to the land registry figures in 5 or 6 months' time with an accuracy rate of 92%. So if you want to know what's going to happen to house prices, just follow that orange line and it'll tell you exactly what will happen to house prices. Right, Rob, I think we are there at the end of the first part of the show. So really, is there anything else before we go to the beautiful town of Thetford?
The only thing, going back to your sales progression bit and fall throughs and cancellations, there is just another concept that some people do is if you know you're going to have 25% fall through rate, just go out and focus on selling more properties and make your pipeline bigger. Because if your pipeline's 100 grand, 25% falls through. If your pipeline's 300 grand, 25% falls through. So the other option is make sure you're still focusing on winning new instructions, getting some price reductions, and backfilling what cancels. Because the amount of people who've said to me, I've not had a great sales week this week because I've had lots of cancellations. Well, you haven't sold enough houses. It's not your cancellations that's the problem. You haven't sold enough in the first place to knock off your cancellations at 25%.
Absolutely bang on there, Rob. Right, Rob, let's leave the UK show now and let us go to Thetford. Here we go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the bit of kit that we're going to use to analyze Thetford is a bit of kit called Insights. And Insights is designed by a firm called 20EA. They have different other platforms, but we're specifically looking at Insights. Insights is Rightmove Plus on steroids with a couple of rockets attached to it. It's amazing. It's game-changing. It's groundbreaking. They haven't paid me a penny to say it. But quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know where you stand in the marketplace, this is absolutely brilliant. Just so for openness, I get the national package completely free of charge. I don't get any commission for anyone signing up to it. You can buy this on a town-by-town basis, regional and national. On a town, in my humble opinion, it's damn good value for money. But I'm not telling you the price, and and you're not to mention my name because I said I do not get paid anything. But the stats that we get from the national show come from there, and it's considered grade A gold standard stats. Are absolutely fantastic. So, okay, Rob, less of that, and let's dive in and have a look. Okay, here we go. There we go. Right then. So basically, there is a suite of graphs here that we can look at. So the first thing we are looking at, let's go and have a look at. So Thetford, and this is the market share sales section. For the purpose of this, we are looking purely at the IP24 postcode. I do know that some Thetford agents just go a bit beyond, but those are the postcodes tend to be covered a little bit by the towns. We're just looking at core Thetford and the villages around it. Okay. We are looking at, and again, anyone watching this, if you're watching it on a phone, it'll be way too small. Watch it on a big screen, okay? We are looking at the 1st of January 2019 all the way through till the 27th of August 2024. We're looking at the postcodes of IP24 and we have excluded new homes in this for this purpose. We're firstly going to be looking at new instructions, okay? And you can see here that basically over the years, the number of new instructions that have been taking place. And again, you can see, and we'll go and look at stock levels in a second. So let's look, and again, because I know you agents love your market share of listings. So let's have a look. So we'll start off at Lawson's, and basically, Rob, I'll just talk, and I just want you just to come straight in as last time. Anything you spot or you want to ask a question, I'll just keep going, okay? So immediately it looks like Lawson's are the number one agent over the long term with it, and I was putting a trend line through that. I'd be putting that at around 21-22%. Nice and steady she goes. It's a small town, is Thetford. So again, the percentages are going to be obviously a lot higher. You know, if you have a good week, then your numbers are going to be higher. I mean, just give you an idea, the population is around 26,000 in Thetford. So a small market town. I've actually been there. It's got a lovely museum, Robbie. So I know you only live down the road from me, but if you're ever wanting to take the missus out, whilst
That's the place to go, is that?
well, to be honest with you, there are much better places to go. but myself and senior management, we do like once or twice a month to jump on a train and go to a museum. And there was Thetford is on the Norwich to Liverpool,
from Peterborough,
which comes through Peterborough and Grantham.
Yeah.
So we went on there. We went on a Friday in the summer once, so everyone was coming back from Great Yarmouth, schoolboy error.
Oh, yeah.
Nearly as bad as the Skeggy train from Nottingham, ladies and gentlemen. There's the Skeggy train. Honestly, if you want to see life in all its myriad and kaleidoscope of life, then catch the Nottingham to Skegness train. Absolutely wonderful, lovely people. Okay, so back to this because people haven't listened to come to talk to us about Skegness trains. Let's go and look at William H. Brown, okay? And again, they're pretty steady as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, okay. Let's go and look at Chilton's. So it looks like they had a decent 2020, but they've probably just leveled out at around the mid-teens mark there, okay?
Yeah.
Let's go and look at Hart. So Hart slight drifting downwards from they were around the 15% mark in 2020 and now looks like on average probably knocking on the door of around 10. So there's a slight drift down there. Okay, let's look at location. Looks like they started in 2021 and decent market share growing from around the 5% mark to around the 10% mark. Hudson's pretty slight drift downwards, nothing scary. At around the 7 or 8% mark. Purple Bricks, okay. Molyneux's, again, we're getting really known numbers there, so they're going to be a bit over the place. Sowerby's, looks like they had a good, what was that one? That was COVID. Let's go and look at Albert's. Okay, I think at Hammond Sheridan's, Yopa, Auction House, and Shires. Okay. There's nothing groundbreaking there. We'll just no. Okay. Let's just so that's the graph there. But we can, as I said, we can look at, and again, ladies and gentlemen, you can actually you could actually do price bands. So if you we'll have a look at price bands. So let's see who the posh agent is. 2.8. Right. Okay. So let's see if there's a market over 1 million. Only 10 houses have come on the market in over 1 million. Okay, let's see. Let's go down to 3/4. Okay, let's go 500,000 then. So you can see here, there's not that many posh houses. You know, out of over 2,000, 2,000 properties that come on the market, less than 10%. In fact, the number's a bit lower actually. I've been over 500,000. So it shows that this is a good old-fashioned market town with not many posh houses. And it looks like Sowerby's are the number one agent for the posh houses.
Yeah, you'd probably expect that in Norfolk, Suffolk, wouldn't you?
I think you would. I mean, interestingly, I'm a big fan of a website called Bricks and Logic, and they do heat maps. And Norfolk is, the posh areas around Cromer and Sheringham and around they're like mega monies, and everything else is quite nice and boring. Yeah. Sowerby's look like they're the number one agent, although Lawson's giving them a run for their money. Let's just just see who the real, that's just, oh, subs have come in, but again, the numbers are so similar.
23. Yeah.
Interestingly, for anyone watching this, and I've said this a few times, there's only one location in the UK where the number one volume agent in terms of total number of listings is the same agent who is the upper quartile agent. I always find that fascinating.
They'll be making a few bob then. Selling posh houses in volume.
Indeed, indeed. And the firm is Wilkinson Grant in Exeter, who are an absolutely fantastic agents. Okay, right. Let's now move on and look at this graph here, which shows us we are looking at between the 28th of August 23 and the 27th of August 2024. The data here, and we've already done new instructions, and a lot of people might be interested in the percentage share of sole subject contracts, but the true magic here, ladies and gentlemen, is in these four columns here, which is exchanged and withdrawn. So again, we know for a fact, okay, that if we add up with Lawson's 77 plus 44, 77 plus 44, hold on, 77 plus 44 is 121. So 121 properties have left Lawson's books in the last 12 months, of which 77% of them have exchanged, which means that Lawson's have an exchange ratio of 63.64, which is absolutely fantastic compared to the town average of 49%. So massive well done there. William H. Brown are at 47%, which is lower, and that is in line with a number of other firms of their type. Their exchange ratio tends to be slightly lower. And I'm not criticizing in any way, shape, or form, just making you guys aware. We have Chilton's at 64, which again is absolutely in line with Lawson's. And then we've got location. Bloody hell, 85%.
That's very high. Very high. Must be pricing them right or doing what we talked about, as if he takes it a bit heavy, he works on it and agrees them to come down very quickly.
Let's have a look. So, number 4, location. There you go. It appears that location are pricing their properties quite well because their price changes. They're only changing their price on 20.3% of their houses, whilst the other agents, which is Lawson's and William H. Brown, tend to be changing their prices on nearly 6 out of 10 houses, which shows that it appears that location are pricing their properties well. Fall through rates quite low at 14%. That's good to see. I mean, what that's telling me is this: if you're a homeowner of a property in Thetford, if you put your house on the market with location, you have nearly a 7 out of 10 chance of selling, whilst a 7 out of 8 chance of selling, whilst there are other agents in the town which have a less than 1 in 2 chance of selling, or a 6 out of 10 chance. Those are really powerful numbers, and yeah, well done, location on that one.
Yeah.
And everyone else,
if it actually takes these numbers and can demonstrate it to customers, that's only going to continue, isn't it? The customers clearly believe in what that agent's saying to them.
Indeed. Well, what we'll now do is let's just have a look at how close, whether agents are overvaluing and how close they're getting to the asking prices. Okay. Again, the numbers are quite small. So, I mean, there's some new homes in there. Hudson's are, yeah, okay. Right, let's move on. Okay, here we go. So, a lot of information happening on here, ladies and gentlemen. So, we're just going to break this one down. Again, we'll look at the top 5 or 6 agents because they are physically based in the town, and then we have some other agents that from other areas that are just nicking at the sides. Okay, so what percentage overvalued? So what's happening is this: is that every one of Lawson's 135 listings and William H. Brown's 126 properties have been have had almost like an AVM or a Valpal figure, if I may use that analogy, attached to them by 20EA. And then 20EA then looked at what you put the house on the market for. And on average, Lawson's have overvalued, and there's nothing wrong with overvaluing, ladies and gentlemen, because there's ethical value overvaluing, but there is also unethical overvaluing. They're overvaluing by 2.14%. William H. Brown at 2.55, Chilton's at 1.77 and location at 0.82. So again, that's as screaming at me is that if you price them well, you don't have to drop the price down. But again, if you look at what location's doing, they're actually getting the houses sold, which is good to see. Hart at 1.82. We now then move on and look at the price achieved. So what percentage drop did you have to take from the original asking price? So therefore, Lawson's are having to take a drop of 4.25, William H. Brown 6.69, Chilton's 2.62, and location on average are getting 1.15% over the original asking price. So that's what that's telling me, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you realistically price we all know this, Rob, don't we?
Yeah.
You realistically price the property, you get a bit of a fighting battle, and it goes over the asking price.
Yeah, more eyes on your property, more people interested, fighting for a better price.
Now, the problem with percentages is that a lot of people get it mixed around their heads. So what 20EA do with this stuff? And again, ladies and gentlemen, you could have this bit of kit in the living room on your iPad proving this to vendors. So again, that's why I'm a massive fan of this. If everyone put on a £300,000 house, here we go, what would each agent achieve for it? And you can see here that Lawson's would achieve 293, William H. Brown 287, Chilton's 297, and location 305, Hart 301. So what that's telling me is that if I was location, I could say I get on average £8,200 more than the average Thetford estate agent for an average Thetford home. That's powerful. So if you're arguing the toss over fees, yes, I cost an extra £1,000, Mrs. Miggins, but I'm going to get an extra 8.
Mrs. Miggins.
You know, there are some disappointing numbers in there. There are some impressive numbers. You know, Auction House here down at 11 and Abbott's. I mean, again, big well done on Abbott's at 12. But again, these are low numbers, so we have to temper it slightly when we have low numbers. But, you know, just be aware that there is powerful data out there that shows you how good or bad you are. And again, ladies and gentlemen, anyone that we're seeing here that we're not, if your numbers aren't as good as you hope they would be, well, use this as a wake-up call to better your game. We're not criticizing in any way. We are just talking like blokes down the pub, Rob.
Yeah, so you can assume, and you should never assume, but location, I would expect to be sitting there saying, I'm more likely to sell your house and I'm more likely to sell it for a better price. There's a double whammy for you. That's
really rare. Okay. That is really, really rare to have both of those. So well done to location. I think we get that. They're our fanboy agent this week, but other agents are available. And as I said, we're not criticizing anyway. Let's see how quick they get through their property. So again, how quickly, oh, wow, here we go. So this graph here shows you how long it takes an agent to sell the house and then how long it takes to get a property through to completion. Remember what we said earlier in the show, ladies and gentlemen, that if a property sells really quickly, if a property sells within 25 days, its chances of actually exchanging and completing are 94%. And if a property takes more than 100 days to sell, its chances of exchanging and completing are 56%. 94 versus 56. Massive. So, looks like Chilton's, if you want to sell the quickest and move the quickest, Chilton's are your number one agent because they take 95 days to get the hold on, here we go. They take 54 days from new instruction to sale agreed, and then they take 95 days from sale agreed to completion. So that, you know, so obviously my gut reaction tells me there is they are not instructing the solicitor, they're not putting sold on the board until the sales progressed. Location, getting a property through in 29 days. That's new instruction to sale agreed, and their progression 121 days. It's not bad. Yeah, I like that. Let's look at Lawson's. Lawson's takes 61 days to find a buyer and 118 days. This is the average, 61 days it takes this year to get a property through from new instruction to sale agreed, and 113 days. Let's see what it was last year. So the average length of time it takes a property to get through from sale agreed to completion has gone down from 122 days to 113 days, and it's gone. And last year, so this is summer of 23 back to summer of 22, took an average 46 days, and on average, it's taking 61 days now to get a property through. Anything on this before we go and look at the rental market?
No, other than it looks like on your charts, just as a brief overview, is most agents are taking a similar amount of time to get it from sold subject to contract to completion, aren't they?
Yes,
On
you're
average.
right. Yes, you're right.
On
So
average.
it's
So again, going back to my initial comment earlier on, is sell more houses. Sell more houses, because the completion times, they're all in chains together. I'm guessing this is the type of marketplace where
yeah,
a two-bed terrace semi moves up to a three-bed semi, moves up to a three-bed detached, moves up to a four-bed detached. So they're all in chains together, or a lot of them will be in chains together. And you're as good as the weakest link, aren't you? So just you focus at the same time as putting more houses on the market and getting them sold and filling the pot.
absolutely bang on there, Rob. You're absolutely bang on. Okay, so this is the rental market. This is the last graph we've got for today. And well, let's just have a bit of fun here. The average rent in Thetford in 2019 was £824, and the average rent in the last year has been £1,084. Pretty big jump. Let's see who the agents are with. Now, with lettings, the vast majority of your properties are going to be relisted properties you've got on your books. So all we really do look at is look at new instructions to give you a flavour of where your marketplace is. So we'll look at Lawson's. Now, if memory says, well, Lawson's, hold on, there we go. Yeah, Lawson's were the #1 agent. Yeah, Lawson's were the
sales.
For sales. So it looks like they're the #1 agent for lettings. So it looks like Lawson's are the #1 agent overall in terms of just volume for both sales and lettings. Again, quite rare. So that's good. Well done, Lawson's. And then William H. Brown coming in at #2. Okay, decent amount of numbers there. Okay, Hudson's, Chilton's. Again, there's not going to be much movement in this, ladies and gentlemen, but it just gives you a flavour of where you stand in the marketplace. Open rent. Now that's interesting. Nationally, in 1919, they had 5% of the market, and at the moment they are running at around 23%. Robert, I'm sure you saw the graph, but for anyone that didn't see it on the show, open rent in 2023. I'll just pull up the stats now, so at least I've got the actual stats here, because this just really just blows my mind. Hold on, here we go. Hold on. Here we go. So, open rent size, if you combined the 14 biggest letting agents in the UK and combined all their stock, they still wouldn't be bigger than open rent. Okay, so that's your Martin and Co's, that's you lot, Whitegates, Foxtons, Kinleys, Connells, William H. Brown, Leaders, all of them, right? They are massive. 1 in 6 houses that are coming on the market on the portals or on Rightmove or with open rent. Absolutely massive. But this is the scary bit, is this. 51.2% of the properties that they put onto the market in 2023 were previously on the market with a high street estate agent. Everyone was worrying about purple bricks. We as an industry have lost 6.5% of our properties to open rent in the last year. So when you're complaining landlords are selling up, they're not. If you actually look at the stats, ladies and gentlemen, the net figures of rental properties is still growing. Yes, the number of landlords selling up has gone up by 43%. The number of landlords buying has gone down by 20%. But the 43 and 20 are off different sets of numbers. If you actually interrogate the numbers and don't look at the headlines, the net figures are still growing. The reason you're losing properties, a big one, is open rent. Why is that, Rob? You've got your finger on the pulse. Why?
Cost effective to put it on the portals and find a tenant. And is there a belief that landlords get value for money from a managed fee? And also, to be fair, if landlords are being squeezed on profit margins for lots of different reasons, from tax to mortgage rates going up to everything else, are they looking for a cheaper option and do it themselves, which opens up a massive problem on compliance and legislation and everything, especially moving forward. So yeah, our agents selling the real reason why they should be working with a landlord, and our landlords understanding why they should be using a managed agent.
You're absolutely right. We're almost like a swan. We make it look too easy, when in reality we're spinning all those plates. I think we should be telling landlords what we're doing to frighten the hell out of them in a nice way.
Yeah.
We only tend to ring them up when there's a problem. You know, when was the last time did you sit down with a landlord and give a review of their portfolio? You know, we're just taking our proverbial 10% and not actually giving value, or more importantly, perceived value, because perception is reality in the eye of the beholder.
What we're finding in a lot of our businesses is that where the business owner is building a proper relationship with landlords, they're growing their portfolio. So, and that's because there's the trust element that they're going to be there in the long term. They've got their interests at heart, and they believe, and they're comfortable with the service that they're going to get, and they'll pay for it. So, again, I think it's about, the world's about people. Are the right people dealing with the landlords to build a relationship to maintain the portfolio and grow it? And if it's not, and it's Johnny who's been in the business for 4 months who's ringing the landlord up, then do we get what we pay for?
Indeed, wise words indeed. Right, let's get back and let's just finish the numbers off. Okay, so yeah, flagship, we'll just do flagship there. There we go. Baselets, Hart, Martin and Co. We'll just do a few of these. There's not many, these are small numbers, but just nice to see for the agents. There you go. Okay, let's leave it at that. Okay, Rob, thank you for your time today. Exceptional as always. We'll get you back before Christmas, all being well.
Yeah, no worries.
Do you have any final thoughts on anything we've said today?
Same as always. There's a market there. The trends will probably continue for the next 4 months. I think it's a year where you can predict what's likely to happen, and therefore in your own businesses, put processes in place and systems in place to make sure you're doing the right things continuously. The only other thing I think, Chris, is we are getting to the time of year where we need to start considering what our closing pipeline is going to be in at the end of December to set us up for 2025. The good thing is, for me, is I'd be having a number in my head that I think actually that's the pipeline value I want it to be going into 2025. Let's make sure I get there, because there's nothing worse than opening a year with a ridiculously low pipeline, unless it's all exchanged and you've had a massive Q4. Yeah, but it does make Q1 2025 challenging. So have a number in your head and set your stall out to make sure you sell enough houses, as well as exchange on them in the next 4 months.
Rob, as always, exceptional as always. We'll get you back, as I said, before Christmas. More importantly, thank you for watching the Stat Shows. If you've got any comments, please put them on the YouTube comments or send me a private DM. Rob, thanks for your time today, and thank you for watching.
Good to be here.